How's it going, guys? I am back. We took the entirety of January off as a little bit of a break, and we're going to be back with World of Tanks console content just in time for the brand new season release, which is the Vipers season. And today we're going to cover all of the news for this season in particular, what's coming up, and what you can kind of expect in the actual season pass across the 100 stages that we're going to have. Now, obviously, the Vipers season, you can see this is their main introduction YouTube video type thing, which we'll put on. There'll be no audio because you never know if anything's copyrighted, so I apologize. There won't be any audio to it. But in terms of how we're going to go through it, let's just pop it on right now. So, starting off, we have the BZ176, which appears like it's going to be, or at least potentially we're going to be seeing the introduction of the Chinese heavy tank rocket boosting vehicles, maybe. And so season rewards, we've got the 112. This is a Chinese heavy tank at tier 8. It's not particularly that good, to be honest with you. It's kind of one of those old premium vehicles that's been in the game for years and years and years, and probably could do with a couple of buffs. I don't think it's awful, but it just doesn't compete with a lot of tanks at the kind of current tier. And of course you can play something like the IS-3, which I think is going to probably fare you a little bit better than that. We got the Type 62 light tank. This is at level 25, which is the tier 7. And then we got the Type 59, so a very Chinese themed season, I would assume, because of Chinese New Year, etc. Now we've got the new BZT-70, which is an escalation era heavy tank. So you've got that one in. Which is second tier of eras within Cold War, and that's at level 100. And then as we move through, we have the Serpent hero skin, which you can see here, which goes for this one. It's got a 180mm gun, which is pretty chunky, and I can assume you'll be dealing, 1,000 and something damage in every shot that you take. The Monkey King we've got as well. And we've got the BZ176 Tier 8 heavy vehicle, which is coming into the game with its rocket boosters. So this is going to be an interesting one because the tank on PC is utterly, and I mean utterly, broken. If you've ever played World of Tanks on PC, this tank is debatably one of the best tier 8s ever made, and it is unbelievable as to how broken this thing actually is. Now, typically with console versus PC, we often see that the vehicles that are absolutely OP end up being really bad when they come over to console because they want to kind of make them not overpowered because they've seen what they're like on PC. But whether or not that is going to be the case, and whether you can even balance such a tank that deals so much damage in every shot that it can deal, I believe on PC it's 850 alpha damage with its premium round, and the premium round I believe gets more penetration than the standard round, which is AP, and then you get Hesh rounds essentially, which deal more damage and have more penetration. But of course, you do have the issues of hitting spaced armor and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it has 800 hit points of damage. So yeah, that's what it is. It's not 850. And then, yeah, increased engine power, which essentially boosts up your speed. And when activated, it lasts 10 seconds. So it's a long old burst. With the BZ176, if I remember rightly, it's about a 3 boost before you run out of the boost. So you can only use so many in every single one. We've also then got ourselves a additional Marks of Excellence support, so for vehicles, so maybe we'll be seeing it on the minis, and kind of the tiny vehicles which don't have that much room for Marks of Excellence, so maybe we'll see that somewhere on those vehicles. There'll be a Cold War Eastern Alliance balance update, probably featuring some of the, more broken vehicles that we've seen over the time, or maybe just buffing them up because some of them are just absolute garbage. And then coming soon will be the World War II Chinese heavy tech tree with rocket boosters, so we'll see those. One thing that I do want to comment on before we get into the nitty gritty of it all is that on PC, the BZ176 has actually got more alpha damage than the tier 10, I believe. So yeah, I mean, the tier 8 that has more damage than tier 10. And if you were to compare it to the tech tree vehicle, it is just infinitely better. It has actual workable armor and pretty much is basically like a tier 10 at tier 8. and you can probably assume why the Marks of Excellence requirements for such a tank on PC are ridiculously high, and why the average damage of that tank is way higher than most of the other vehicles in that tier. So without speculating too much, we do have some of the stuff that we've actually got with this season. So the Ultimate Season Pass obviously unlocks with the BZ176 because everyone knows the hype around the vehicle, how overpowered it is on PC, so they want to sell it. So that is why it's probably in the Ultimate Season Pass. And that comes with the Monkey King 3D Commander, and then you get the 25 levels as standard with all of the Ultimate Season Passes also unlocked. Now, the actual cost of the Ultimate Season Pass, you can see, is 6,000 gold, as you normally would see with the cost of Ultimate Season Passes. So you get the tank, you get the commander, 25 levels already completed, and all of the rewards from the Season Pass included in the bundle. So essentially, you're paying an additional like 4,000 gold in order to get the Ultimate Season Pass. Which is essentially, you know, you're paying 4,000 gold for a tier 8 premium at that point, which is very good value for money, especially when you consider that this is going to be the first of the rocket boosters entering into the game and as kind of like a tester. So yeah, in terms of value for money versus all of the other things in the game, it's pretty darn good. Am I going to recommend it to those of you that are maybe struggling on money, or you don't have the financial opportunity, or you only have so many opportunities? I don't know, maybe you want to spend it doing something else, so I'm not going to tell you to go and spend your money on premium tanks and World of Tanks. But in terms of Season Pass, that's where the Type 59 and the Type 62 come in. So at stage 25, you get the Type 62 light tank and the Type 59 at stage 75. And then, of course, the rank 100 is the BZ176, which is the Eastern Alliance heavy tank. So Era 2. And then, of course, the free rewards, you can pick up the 112, which is a lovely free reward that I'm sure lots of people are going to be playing. Yeah. Anyway, moving on then, we've got some cosmetics and stuff like that. I'm not going to stop too much on them, but basically some camouflages. We've got a panda camo and stuff like that. Some emblems and vouchers and stuff like that, as alongside the Viper's Season Medal for completing the season. And then, of course, you've got the additional XP and silver and the vehicle XP that you're going to get from completing the Season Pass. Once you reach stage 100, you get 25% more XP in every single game that you play. Once you reach 118, you'll then receive 25% Commander XP. And then once you reach 124, you'll get 25% bonus to silver on every game that you play. So if you play a lot of the game, you're going to earn a lot of silver and XP, more so than someone who maybe isn't going to be able to get to stage 100 as quickly. But of course, don't sweat too much. It's not that much of a big deal, but it's a nice thing if you are grinding out past stage 100. There is a point to do it. And then, of course, we got the Viper's Starter Pack, which comes in. It's free. Everyone gets this for free. You just go to the store section within whatever console you're playing, provided it is accessible in your region. And then you'll be able to pick up 3 days of premium, 2 times silver boosters, 3 times vehicle XP boosters, and 4 times commander XP boosters. So 5 lots of each of those. And then, of course, yeah, it's free. So make sure you go and pick it up. And then the Viper's Season vehicles, of course, the 112, we've got all of the stuff. If you've already got some of these vehicles, so if you have the 112, you'll get 4.9 million in compensation as silver. If you've got the Type 62, you get 1.92 million in silver. And if you've got the Type 59, you'll get 3 million. I believe I've got all 3. So there's a nice chunk of silver for me to grab up. Pretty much nearly 10 million silver if you have all of those. So yeah, at least it's a benefit in that regard. And then the BZ176, this is the new vehicle, so you can see it right here. Looks pretty darn good, but in terms of its characteristics, we can see how much damage this thing can deal. 950, so we weren't too far off in the prediction of 1,000. It's got 0.38 accuracy, which is okay, but not great for Cold War, to be honest with you. Aim time of 2.7 seconds, yet again, not particularly that good, so gun handling, not going to look like it's going to be amazing. 65% silver bonus is really nice though, and is going to net you a decent chunk of change if you do decide to play it. And yeah, it's nice to see the higher alpha, I guess, as they're not that common if you're not playing a ATGM. So yeah, it's kind of nice to have a higher alpha damage tank. In terms of The armor model, hopefully we've actually got a screenshot of the armor model here. Yeah, doesn't look all too good. Looks like you're going to be getting penned quite easily with heat ammunition because there's no spaced armor on this tank. And the lower plate looks pretty chunky. And although the turret of this thing is well angled, with the heat ammunition from long distances, you may still get penned anyway. In terms of pen on this tank though, you've got 380 as standard and 450 as premium. So the standard is AP, the premium round is heat. Pretty slow rounds here, so it's going to take a while to actually hit targets at long range, which I guess is why Wargaming are intending this as a bit more of a brawling heavy vehicle. It is quite slow, 50 kilometers an hour. Combine that with the fact that the armor doesn't look particularly that good, unless you consider, if you can get hold down, maybe this thing is going to be slightly better. But it does have that big cupola on the top, which I can almost assume will be a weak point for a lot of players if it does manage to get hold down. In terms of side armor, you do get a pretty decent amount of protection from these space plates. So it's probably one of those things where maybe you can actually side scrape, especially if you're side scraping where you can hide the cupola on the right hand side of your vehicle. So if you're side scraping out from a building on your right, you should have a much better time than if you're side scraping out from a building on your left, because the cupola will be visible before your actual gun. Whereas in the opposite direction, they're not going to be able to see the cupola until you've actually got your gun out looking at them. So if you're side scraping, that could be a benefit. But you do have this plate right here, which is quite small. And this is probably in this kind of area where maybe you can track and pen. So that could potentially cause some issues because it does have that plate right there. Anyway, moving on, we then have the skin. So this is what it looks like. Pretty decent looking skin, I'm not going to lie. And then we've got the BZ176. So jumping in, the game's first rocket booster tank packs a mighty punch thanks to its powerful cannon, and it's just like the snake that waits for its prey to come closer. This Chinese brawler shines at a peekaboo vehicle at close range encounters. Pop up fire and fall back to cover to load your next shot. Repeat this tactic to make the most of this tank's perks. Blah, blah, blah. And going back to the rocket booster point, this new mechanic will let you experiment with new strategies to give you an advantage over opponents, in which you can get to the front lines before a lot of the medium tanks in the game, based on the PC. But does this actually tie up on console? Well, a speed limit of 30 kilometers an hour, and what I'll do right now is I'll just pick up the World of Tanks PC stats for the BZ176 so we can have a little bit of a comparison so you guys get an idea as to what they've made changes versus the PC version to see if it is going to be the exact same. If it's different, I'll do that now. So, starting off, the horsepower of the BZ176 is 600. It is the exact same on console alongside its speed limit of 30 kilometers an hour. Its hull traverse is 29 degrees and we've got essentially a 29 degrees. So it's going to be very, very similar. You've got 10 degrees of gun depression and you also have that on the BZ on PC with 20 degrees of elevation as well. Penetration wise, you only have 2 rounds on console. This is where the biggest difference is going to come in. You have the AP rounds with 208mm of penetration with 650 alpha. Because of the gun that this thing has, it's a 160mm, I believe. This thing can overmatch quite a lot of vehicles by going through the armor component. So essentially anything that is 50mm thick can be overmatched. So a lot of roofs of tanks can be overmatched. A lot of sides of vehicles can be overmatched. Now, PC versus console, the overmatch mechanic does work slightly differently, I believe. There's not too much detail and not particularly too many good answers that I've had back when I've questioned this with Wargaming in terms of overmatch mechanics. They say it works just like PC, but I'm not entirely sure because there's a lot of times where that just doesn't seem to be the case. But with 208 penetration, it is on the lower side. So this is essentially the same as the standard AP rounds that you get with the BZ176 on PC. However, the HE with the BZ on PC has 225mm of penetration, which is a significant change to what you see with the console version, which only has 80 penetration, which is a good change. It is an actual very good change because that is what made the BZ on PC why would you fire AP unless you're coming up against something that is just, overmatchable and you're not going to be able to deal a full penetration against with the 225 pen. Now you actually have a option between, hey, look, there's something I can pen with HE, and oh, I'm not going to be able to pen it, let me swap to AP. Now, if you're buying this tank thinking that it is going to be as overpowered as on PC, this one change is going to make a world of difference, and I think that that is going to make this tank significantly worse, to the point where it is probably going to be a okay vehicle. It is going to be okay. It's not going to be super overpowered, although the armor model of this tank is still going to be very good, and even with its 80 penetration, this is still a lot enough, well, it's still enough to be able to go through a lot of those lower tier vehicles that you're going to be coming up against. Things like Tigers, things like Tiger 2s if you find the side of them potentially. That sort of thing is going to be possible with the HE, provided you get a very flat surface and you hit the right parts of armor, which rewards actually aiming, which is something that is very, very good. And yeah, the fact that you've got this actually nullifies a lot of the problems that the BZ on PC had, which is the fact that why would you ever fire the AP rounds unless you find those armoured vehicles that only can be overmatched as opposed to penned, which is very limited, and so most players just run the full HE on PC. So a big change in that department. Accuracy wise, you've got a 0.46 on console, which is 0.44 on PC, so not a massive change in that range, but it is slightly worse on console. And so overall the tank is looking like it's going to be pretty much the exact same. You've got a slight reload nerf to the console version versus the PC, so essentially they've toned down everything a little bit, except from that penetration on the HE rounds, which is toned down by like 1,000,000%. It makes it into an actual HE round as opposed to a primary round that everyone's going to be firing. So in terms of, do I think this tank is going to be overpowered? Do I think it's going to be like completely annoying or whatever? I think if it gets hold down, it's going to be a pain, but it's not going to have the alpha damage that you see on PC. And certainly if you're getting into position as a heavy tank and you do have to actually expose yourself, which you do have to do in game, even when you're playing perfectly like well and doing everything that you want to, if a BZ on PC rocks up and just decides, you know what, I'm coming over to deal 800 damage to you, they can do that. On console, it's going to be a lot more of a risky thing for a player to do. So should, in quotation marks, because people are still going to do it, should stop the YOLO wagon BZ176. Although when it first comes out, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of them just YOLOing over, thinking, oh, I have big damage, and ending up just back in the garage and probably not penning a hell of a lot of shots other than that one occasional one, which will probably be against you or me because, you know, of course. But either way, yeah, the tank is definitely not going to be as overpowered. That's one thing I can say for certain. And in terms of the armor model of the tank, you can see very, very good armor on PC. It is outrageously good. The lower plate of this thing is tiny. The upper plate is very well angled. And the frontal plate, which you can see here in red, is actually pretty thick as well. And even the cheeks of this thing, because of the angle and the armor model, it's actually very good as well. So even tier 10s can bounce off this thing. It's probably less so in tier 10, but definitely tier 9 and tier 8 vehicles basically find this thing a pain in the ass to pen. It can be overmatched on the roof, and it does have a cupola, but they're quite small in comparison. And if we go over to the 3D model on PC, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, whereby this is what you're seeing. So effective armor of the upper plate is 230, but because of the angling of it, it's pretty darn good, and so most of the time you can bounce off with an auto ricochet, but the cupola and the top of the tank is pretty garbage at 41mm, meaning that 123mm plus guns can overmatch against the top of the turret, and it does have those cupolas which can be penned, but they're very small in comparison to something like an American cupola, which, yeah, is not going to be too fun when you're coming up against something like this. And of course you can see the lower plate is a weak point, but it is very, very small. And of course from distance, when it's moving and rocket boosting randomly to avoid getting hit, it can be a lot of, well, pretty much a pain in the arse as well. And if you're looking down at the tank, don't go for the lower plate, go for the upper plate, as it then becomes quite easy to pen. So The BZ176 is coming to console. It's not going to be as overpowered, so there you go. That's my opinion of the tank. Of course, all subject to actually playing the vehicle and testing it out. It could be absolutely diabolically bad now, but yeah, don't go buying it with the thinking that it is going to be OP. Definitely hold off if you're unsure about the tank, and check out some of the content creators' videos on it. Check out multiple to see which guys have the best kind of overview of it. And yeah, 4 rocket boosters are to be used as well. So quite a decent chunk of those to be used. And the cooldown's 4 seconds with a 10-second duration. So very quick to get into position in the early game to catch some of those light tanks and mediums that are getting into position with their minimal amount of armor. So yeah, the BZ176 exclusive to the Viper's Ultimate Season Pass, and will probably be sold at a later date for like 10,000 gold or something stupid. So yeah, if you want to buy it, now is the time. It's the cheapest it's probably ever going to be. From my opinion, yeah, you just don't see the sales ever going as low as 4,000 gold for a premium vehicle on this game at tier 8. So let alone a heavy vehicle as well. A rocket booster mechanic, essentially you use it like down here, you press left on the D-pad and you're going to be able to boost long, whatever that is on controller or on keyboard. If you do use it, I don't use keyboard or mouse or anything, but it will be whatever the hotkey is for the rocket boosters. It will be shown in the settings. But yeah, you can see this is what it looks like. It's essentially just a burst of speed, increased speed. You can go up to like 44 kilometers an hour, confirmed at least in the screenshots, a minimum of 44 kilometers an hour. So pretty darn fast for a heavy vehicle with the armor that this thing has. And you can see the stages. So rocket booster not ready is grayed out. Rocket booster ready is with a little red tinge, and then when it's activated you'll see the full rockets being shown, and of course then you've got the commanders that come alongside the season. So lots of stuff. Some of them have their own voice lines, you can see here. I'm not going to play them, but yeah, they'll be in the game as well. And then of course you can buy out the season if you decide that you want to waste all of your money, which I would never recommend because it is stupidly expensive in my opinion. 250 gold per stage, which, you know, you've got 100 stages, that's 25,000 gold, and you'd be better off buying the Ultimate Season Pass and then just grinding the season. It really does not take that long, especially as you get later on in the season. There's no issues for anyone that plays a decent chunk of the game during the entire season that you're going to be able to complete it. Of course, there's going to be outliers and stuff like that, but yeah, if you stack it up to the end, maybe the 7th week or something like that of the season, you'll have all of the challenges that you can complete consecutively at the exact same time. So you don't have to do it week by week at all. So that is definitely going to be a big bonus if you don't have much time at the beginning of the season. And of course, it's available until the 1st of April. So it is a pretty long season, about like 8 weeks, something like that, or 7 weeks or something. So yeah, pretty long time, should be able to get it done, and yeah, really excited to see what this thing actually brings into the game. And of course, I'm glad to be back after the break. We'll be churning out the videos as normal for the channel from like a year ago. We were a bit lazy, I guess, in terms of uploading, but we'll be back to it this time, and we're going to try and keep up with what we were doing previously, as I am now partially employed, part-time, whatever you want to call it. I only work 2 days a week now, so yeah, I got a lot more time to be able to make the videos, and that should be getting up to schedule. Just trying to work out on some things to make the videos better and just overall a better experience for you guys, as I want to try and ramp that up and make it a little bit better, see what we can do with the console department. But thank you very much for watching the video. Thank you very much for sticking with me over the last, 4 years that we've been doing this, or maybe even longer. I can't even remember at this point. It might be 5. But yeah, I really do appreciate your time and all of the comments that you guys make. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like it, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.